Well, I looked at William's chart as well.
Okay.
And William also, of course, they're born the same year.
Mm-hmm.
She's a little bit older than he is. He was born June 21st, 1982. And he was born on a new moon, not an eclipse. Yeah. Yeah. So he was born when we're supposed to be writing down what we want to do, like every new moon is a good time to set our intentions.
Yeah.
And he has his sun at 0 degrees, 0 degrees of Cancer. And he has his moon at 4 degrees of Cancer. And close to them, he has his north node at 13 degrees of Cancer. So he's a real emotional guy. And, he's got that moon in Cancer, he's got a sun in Cancer, and his sun is kind of a baby sun. It's just at 0 degrees. It's 0 degrees 6 seconds, and his chart, well, they rank charts, but they gave his time as 7 o'clock. So it could be off by seconds. I mean, it's like, oh, let's just say 7 o'clock. It's close enough. Who knows? But it's from his birth certificate. And he is a life path too, but really what he is he's a master number 11.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you expand on what that means for anyone who
Yeah.
might not?
Yeah. A master 11 is really, really psychic.
Okay.
If, yeah, he knows. And I don't know how much he's given, how much he's probably, it's just happened. It's natural. There's nothing much he can do about it, but whether or not he goes on his instincts and what he's hearing and how he's feeling, he probably does, but he hasn't learned exactly. He hasn't learned how to, he's just let himself wallow in being in this trapped feeling. So
When
he has his moon and his sun in his seventh house, directly opposing his Neptune in the 12th, which is his house of self undoing. And his Neptune is 25 degrees of Sagittarius, conjunct his ascendant at 27 degrees Sagittarius. And his part of fortune is in the other side in his first house. That's where he's going to find his fortune, is when he truly becomes himself.
mm-hmm.
And he hasn't been able to see that. I don't know. He's been deluding himself, and so instead of just kind of wallowing, and he's allowed himself from an early age to just drink his troubles away.
The picture when you started talking about the planets and the placements and everything, the picture that my guides brought into my mind was like a baby crying in a wooden playpen in the middle of the floor, and and just crying, crying, crying. But then I saw him like as a grown man, and I was like, is this what it is like inside of you? And he was like, if I were to let loose all of my feelings, the world would drown.
So he needs to heal too. And it will happen, but it's going to take a while because his Chiron is moved. Your Chiron's moved to 25 degrees. It's, wait a second, Chiron. I wrote it down. He's got his Venus exactly conjunct his Chiron. It's in his fifth house, and they're both 25 degrees of Taurus. Now, I want you to know that 24 degrees of Taurus is a crazy degree. There is
Okay.
a there is a star that's at 24 degrees of Taurus, and I don't know, I can't remember. I was going to look it up and I didn't have a chance, but all I remember is that people 24 degrees of Taurus, oh my gosh, it's crazy. It's bedlam. It's like, it's a degree that you just don't want things to be on. And luckily he's not on that degree, okay?
Right.
It's with stars, it needs to be exact, almost to the minute. You get 30 seconds,
Okay.
you know, for how much you want to say. So I'm really glad that happened. So
Yes.
he got over that 24 degrees and he's into 25. But yeah, I just thought it was really interesting that they're exact. They're really exact. And now I'm going to get into what I see in his chart. The ruler of his chart is Jupiter, and it's in Sagittarius. What a wonderful placement!
Okay.
It's the ruler. It's it's Jupiter rules Sagittarius. He has a wonderful. He would like to shoot for the stars. He's got all kinds of great ideas, and he could really do well with that.
Hmm.
Okay, and where is that? It's in his 10th house. And he up in his 10th, I mean, it's in his ninth house. It's almost on his midheaven, excuse me. So it's at his Jupiter is at 0 degrees, 2 seconds. And it is retrograde. So it's a little less potent than it might be. I mean, Jupiter on your midheaven is like, yeah, but he could be king. Because as things progress, this is your natal chart, and we do have something called progress charts where you get to see things that progress. And it looks to me like it's probably Jupiter is going to be going backwards and then it'll go forwards, and it's going to end up in his 10th house. He could be the king.
Yeah. I'm curious. I feel like the energy that I get is that the monarchy as it was is it's morphing.
Right. In his ninth house, he's got Mars, conjunct Saturn, conjunct Pluto, conjunct Jupiter. And he's got kind of a seesaw chart. He can go from one thing to another, and across the thing, it's like, from, you know, he's got to get a hold of what's leading him,
Yeah.
because he goes from being led one way down this path and then on this other path. And I think that it's been a tough life. He's got a yod in his chart, and it's pretty big thing. So he's got Saturn, like I said, conjunct his part of fortune, conjunct his ascendant. And then there's a sextile to that whole thing up there with Jupiter, Pluto, Saturn, and Mars. And those two things are sextile, and both placements, the Neptune and the ascendant and the thing on his midheaven, are in conjunct his Venus and Chiron. And Chiron is the wounded healer. So you look at that, and I went, oh my gosh. The finger is the finger of God. A yod is like also called the finger of God, and people don't understand it very well, but I've got enough yods in my chart that I think I understand it. It's nothing that you do. You were
Right.
just happens. You happen to be there. You happen to be born then, and God is pointing, or the Great Spirit, or whatever you believe in, is pointing his finger at you. And he wants you to learn to love yourself, love you for all the imperfections that you have, and fess up to them, address them, um, and learn to love yourself and your faults. And by doing that, you'll be able to really move mountains.
He will come into his power the second that he integrates the darkness and heals those wounds in his body, in his mind, in his soul, and in his spirit. He has a lot of
I'm getting chills.
he's got a lot of opportunities ahead of him. He needs to choose the choice for himself and for his family and for his country if he wishes to do those things. Like I said, I feel like it's very difficult to be in a fishbowl like that.
Right. That's why I think Anne may come in and save the day and let everybody deal with what they need to deal with at this time in their lives.
Mm-hmm.
And I always have wished the best for both of them.
Of course, yeah.
You know, I'm, whether or not it's true, you hear things and whatnot about his transgressions, but I do believe that he does have a problem with alcohol. And I do believe that so does Catherine. And I think a lot of the royals do. You take a look at King Charles and Camilla. They like their whatever it happens to be. And the Queen, she used to, what did she like? Gin and tonics or something, and that's okay. And you can do that. But there's a point where that can't take over your life. But that's the problem with alcohol. You can become addicted to it without even thinking about it. It can become an addiction easily.
Yes.
First it's one drink and then it's another. So anyway, his release point for that yod is in his 10th house in Scorpio. It's a 25 Scorpio, which is just conjunct the house placement. And because his chart isn't exactly correct to the minute, it's good. I'm going to say that it's right there, and it's right on the cusp of his 11th house, which is Scorpio and Uranus. And now, right now, I mean, it's Scorpio and Sagittarius in that 11th house of his, and he has Uranus in there. That's what I was trying to say. Uranus is in his 11th house. So he has some strange friends, this guy. He got some quirky friends. And yeah, so his Uranus is at 1 degree 30 seconds of Sagittarius. Yep. So that's what I've got for him. He's got, I agree with you completely. He's got it. I looked at this and said, well, I hope we have free will.
He's got the makings of greatness in him.
And it's time for him to evolve as well.
Yes.
And it's not going to be easy.
No.
Might be a little bit easier for him than it is for Kate. But Kate's strong. Where I don't see, I think William is more emotional than Kate. And I think that's why they came together. So I did a chart. You go ahead and say what you'd like to say, and then I'm just going to take a look at another chart. Go ahead. I think I left it somewhere.
That's okay. Yeah, I was just going to say, like, he has the makings of greatness in him. He has to. Look at who his mother is. Look at how she's changed the world in time and the beliefs. Like, she changed so many things by just being herself.
By just being herself. And that's who she was. I looked at her chart, but I didn't print it out.
No.
Well, this is the next chart.